Oh, okay. Thanks, Edith. Okay. My name is Carol Weinshall. I'm the Vice President of Program and Membership at Congregation Rodeph Sholom in Bridgeport, Connecticut. The reason I introduce myself all the time, even though you know who I am, is since these are being recorded and they're going into the archives, we would like to have a date and place and time. So in case you're bored with hearing who I am, that's the reason. Today is the 9th of February, and we are on our Coffee and Conversation program, and I promised you a mystery speaker. I'm going to ask the mystery speaker to indulge me for just a couple of minutes because a few things have happened that I need to share with you to protect you. So I'm going to announce who the mystery speaker is and hope that she will give me about 5 or so minutes to give you some tips. So Edith, will you give me a few minutes for some protection? You're muted. Wait, you're muted, Edith.
Oh, I don't know what that protection is, but I can tell you about my experience with Jewish camps and
Okay,
however long that takes.
Okay,
but maybe other people have experiences they can talk about.
That's what I figured. That's why I think it's very important that I give you the tips first so we don't lose them. About 2 weeks ago, I had a phone call. A very nice voice on the other end, sounding young-ish, not 12, maybe 20. And the voice on the other end said, Grandma, how are you? I said, who is this? And the voice said, this is your grandson. I said, really? He said, don't you recognize my voice? And I said, well, that's really funny. I don't have any grandchildren. Click. And the man who was working in my house happens to be our network administrator from the synagogue and from Weinshall, Winick and Associates. And he said to me, oh, Carol, you're now getting them too? There's a lot of that going on. And I said, I know, but I never got the grandma one. So I texted my grandson, who's in college, and I asked him, did you call me? It was in the morning. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. And I got one of these emojis. No, why? And so I said, I'll call you in a little while. And I told them what happened. And then we chuckled about it, that my grandchildren wouldn't know my landline. They only know from cell phones today. They don't even know what to do with the other kind of phone. So it ended. This morning, I was working on the computer, just getting ready to get ready, and the phone rang again. And this time the voice sounded like groggy. I was bothering him. He was waking up. He didn't sound good, different than the first phone call. Grandma, I need to talk to you. I said, please give me your phone number and I'll call you right back. Click. So I called the Fairfield police. I didn't know if they were tracking phone numbers. And I got a really nice dispatcher who said to me, Mrs. Weinshall, we can't keep track of them. There are so many. And because those people, keep calling, they keep changing the phone number from where they're calling. So if we track that phone number will change. She said, go on, fill out the do not call list. I said, well, I did. And she said, do it again. It expires. So you have to do it again. So I did. So I'm telling you, the registry, do not call. And she said to me, I personally don't answer any phone calls from phone numbers I don't recognize. Now, let me just take you to another place. I get a lot of phone calls. I get phone calls from you, not you in particular, but synagogue people. And I don't know everybody's phone number. I have a friend who only calls my house phone. We've been friends for 50 years. She said, Carol, you know me, I'm old fashioned. I don't pay any attention to the cell phone, so I call you on your house phone. Well, I recognize her number, but there are people who only use the house phone. So that's one thing. Be aware. Spread the word. You can't be too careful. The worst thing that happens is you're over careful and you hang up. If it's somebody you know who loves you, if it's your grandchild, God forbid, in trouble, they're going to call you back. They're going to reach their parents. If they're really in trouble, it's not going to happen this way. So the next thing was I got an email last night, and some of you must have gotten it from Judy Zeidel. A friend of hers got this message that at Whole Foods in Westport, and it can happen any place, but that's where it seemed to happen. A woman, mature woman, was getting into her car with her groceries, got into her car, closed the door, and somebody came to the driver's side, knocked on the window, and said to her, your back passenger side tire is going flat. You need to check it out. And the woman got out of the car, out of the driver's side. Now, if I'm wrong, yes, she had to get out of the driver's side. And when she did and walked around to the back of the car, the accomplice opened the passenger side and took her pocketbook. Now, apparently all that that person wanted was her wallet and credit cards, because the pocketbook was found not far from the car. But, you know, if they got your credit cards and your wallet, what else is in there? Some Tylenol, you know, a pen. I don't know what else you have, but whatever I have seems to be heavy, my keys. So the idea is, don't open your door. Don't open your window for anybody. Now, you know that we're putting in a security system in the synagogue, a very sophisticated security system. And the men are there working, they're pulling wires, hanging wires. We're going to have 17 cameras at the synagogue. So Larry, Debbie, and I, that's Larry Shire, have been going to webinars on security. And we heard one in particular that at some point we will share with you, but sharing out of context just doesn't make any sense to me. And this man, who's very well-spoken and knowledgeable in this area, said, you need to know when you park your car at a mall, at a grocery store, you need to know what's around you. Is there, and the cars can move. So say you park near an SUV, by the time you get out, that SUV is gone and it's now a Volkswagen Beetle. But you need to know if you're parked near a pole, a light pole, if you're parked near one of those stanchions. You really need to make yourselves very much aware of your surroundings. Make yourself aware of where you are. If you sense somebody is following you, don't drive home. Go to a safe place, a fire station, the police station. Don't let people know your typical route. This is what he told us. So I'm sharing those with you. And I can tell you that when I've been to the grocery store now, I am a little bit more tuned in, probably a lot more tuned in. And to tie this together and to tell you where it was reinforced for me, I just took the AARP renewal of my driving course for, insurance. And as I listened to it, when it got to what are some of the things you can do to help yourselves and protect yourself, those same things about the awareness and the heightened awareness, even while you're driving, came through loud and clear. So since last week, all of this has happened, and I knew I would have a captive audience, and I wanted to share with you. So those are my tips. I don't know if any of you have had any of these experiences. That's where we are. Edith.
I had a call like that last week, and I almost fell for it for about 6 sentences because he sounded exactly like my grandson. Plus, he added a little bit about himself that his reason for calling me was he had an accident. He broke his nose. That covered him for any change in the voice that I might have noticed. So I just kept asking him questions because I became a little bit suspicious about the 3rd sentence. And on the 4th one, I said, and how is the baby? And where is the baby? Because he claimed to be in Hartford. And that's where I had him because so I wasn't polite, I have to tell you. If you've ever heard a truck driver curse,
Oh dear.
and I hope he heard every word and what a loser he was.
Okay, then maybe he won't be calling you back.
Not this one, but another one.
He'll give your number to a friend. I mean, it makes you wonder that these people have nothing better to do. We need people to work today. Go get a job. I don't do this and prey on older people, for goodness sake. So that's, I'm glad for your story too, Edith, because you're very savvy. And I hope everybody else is, and we don't get caught, really. So, okay. At services, at the end of services on Shabbat, we started talking during Kiddush, our virtual Kiddush, and I'm not exactly sure how it started. And it kind of doesn't matter how it started, but where it went was fascinating. We were going to camp, and some of us had been to the JCC in the day. Judy Eisenberg had been to Camp Midwood. And we started talking about what the camp looked like, what were some of the things we did, what were some of the songs. And the next thing we know, our speaker, who we all know as Edith Winick, we don't know everything about her, which is what I said to you at the beginning when I asked Gracie to speak. We didn't know everything about Gracie. We didn't know where she grew up. We didn't know about her family. We didn't know that she came from Sudan. Well, in the same way that we didn't know about Gracie, we don't know everything about Edith Winick. And she piped in and said, she asked the question, so were you there whenever? Because I was the camp nurse. And we were like, what? Where did that come from? I knew she was a nurse, but I never knew she went to camp. So I talked to her and asked her if she would speak this morning. So she is our mystery guest. And I'm going to turn the screen over to Edith, and I'm not muting you. If you have a question, feel free to ask. She'll be great about answering. Correct, Edith?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions. But I wanted to tell you that you don't know everybody. You can't know everybody. But I have to tell you this little story, and it's not much of a story really, but this little story is that I didn't know myself, because there were experiences buried in my memory that I hadn't thought of in many years, when we're prompted by the discussion of JCC, which when I heard that, JCC camp, when I heard that, a whole flood of information came into my head that had been buried for a long time, that I didn't realize that I had forgotten that I had a whole career in Jewish camps, in Jewish camps. The first experience I had with, and it was with JCC, that I was a 10-year-old in JCC's camp. It was a day camp. The bus picked us up and we went there. And the best thing about that was that on the way home, they let you do whatever you wanted. I spent a lot of my time under a tree reading a book because I didn't speak English yet and I couldn't relate too well with everybody. But the next best thing was that on the way home, they gave us a container on the bus, the thickest, most delicious chocolate milk you've ever had in your life. So this memory came back to me. That was, and then in 54, that was in 1939, 1940. In 54, I was the JCC's camp nurse for a summer. I was their camp nurse. It was, Then I went on and got married, went to New York, and became the nurse at the Yeshiva of Flatbush. Now, when we were talking about it, the Minyan, I had mixed it up. I thought I was at the camp at East Midwood Jewish Center. That was wrong. It was the Yeshiva of Flatbush. They were the two most popular. Yeshiva of Flatbush was Orthodox. East Midwood was conservative, but I had mixed the two up. So it was at Yeshiva of Flatbush that I was a camp nurse. And subsequent to that, I camped 2 summers at Camp Ramah in the Kent. There's a division in Kent on the Connecticut-New York border. So it came to me that here I had all this experience that I hadn't thought about in years, so I didn't know myself. And it occurred to me at the same time that people who write books, novels particularly, must have a talent for remembering minutiae in their life that they apply to, besides having a talent for words, that they apply to that they can use in their stories. This is much, because sometimes when I'm reading a novel, I say, where did they get that? Where do they pull that out of there? A lot of it, I imagine, is from memory that they can change and revise and put it into their stories. So everybody has a story. Another version of everybody has a story. Sometimes you have a story that you don't even know you have. So that's my little story. And I wondered how many other things have I forgotten that will come out in a discussion like this, maybe. So if this prompts you to remember something about yourself, everybody, this is the time for you to talk about it. And I thank you for the time and listening.
Oh, wow. What an interesting way of looking back. So where were the camps in New York? Were they in the city or were they?
No, they were all the camps I went to was, as I said, the Camp Ramah was in Kent, in the woods, backwards. JCC was, of course, a bus ride away in the country. Yes. I don't know if that still exists or whether it got built up or not. I really don't know. Maybe somebody knows it. By the way, when I was at JCC, I asked the group that was on that Minyan if anybody was there particular years, and I missed everybody by about 10 years. I was always about 10 years earlier there than anybody, because a good many people did go to JCC camp, but they were about 10 years younger than I was.
So I want to go backwards and then forwards for a minute. the yeshiva camp of Flatbush, where was that?
It was outside of New York. Uh, I can't tell you exactly what town
Oh,
was in it,
okay,
because, but it was also a bus ride.
okay,
All
right.
It was a bus ride away. I don't know if it still exists, but East Midwood Jew Center really did not have a camp. They didn't have a camp. It was just Yeshiva Flatbush that I knew of there.
Okay. So
And
just to bring,
I had an interesting experience there. I had a little camper, a young girl who came to help me in the nurse's office. And I can't even tell you her name right now. And she helped me. She washed the thermometers. She was very good. She was very efficient. And she came back every day. Instead of playing, she came back to help me in the nurse's office. And I said to her, you know, when you get out of high school, go to college and become a doctor. Because she was very efficient and she was very smart. Many years later, I got a letter from her that she did become a doctor.
okay, you really made a difference.
Carol, you must appreciate that as a teacher, when a student comes back to you, that you have influenced in some way. Maybe she would have been a doctor anyway, but I feel good about it every time I think about it.
You know, Edith, I think about a boy in my class, and he used to come to the library. And at the time, so it goes back a lot of years, probably 1998-ish, when Matthew was in Korea, well, two of them, this particular boy continues to call me Mrs. Weinshell. And every time he sees me, he asks me how Matthew is doing, because he remembered what Matthew said when he came in a flight suit to speak to the kids. And that boy is David Marsilio from Marsilio's Appliances. And then I had one other who sticks out in my mind, who kind of adopted Matthew in a funny kind of way. He thought that my collecting for the troops was like the best thing he had ever heard. And so for Christmas one year, he decorated with a picture of him and me, like one of the empty pretzel jugs. And so what do you think this phone call is from Tom's River on my cell phone? Since I don't know anybody in Tom's River, it can't be all that important. So this boy wrote a whole Megillah on the outside of this pretzel jar. And it said, I'm helping my teacher who's sending packages to her son and his soldiers. Please put money in the bucket. And at Christmas, when the whole family was together, he took his bucket and he walked to everybody at their party. And after Christmas, he handed me $700. Wow. I'll never forget it. He's in medical school today. So that ties together your doctor and my doctor, which, you remember those things, and it makes a difference. And if you
remember,
yeah,
I remember one little girl that got me into trouble. She was about 12, and she was at that age where things happen to your body. So she came to me with a bellyache, and I had her lie down, and I gave her a hot water bottle. I don't think I had electricity. I couldn't plug a hot pad in, but I gave her a hot water bottle and told her to take a nap. But she was very proud about what was happening to her, and she took the hot water bottle, put it on her belly, and walked around the camp with it. And the camp director came raging into my nursery and said, "How dare you send out a child with a hot water bottle to her belly," and opening us to criticism by the parents. I said, I didn't see her leave. So I ended up being criticized because of what she did. She created an embarrassing situation, But that's exactly what she wanted to do. She kind of turned up everybody because everybody was talking about her.
That's so
So,
funny.
a little funny story. So the remembering the camps brought back a lot of other stuff, which was kind of fun to remember.
Well, that's good. That's what this is all about. And I wanted to tell you that curiously, since our conversation on Shabbat, when we were talking about what did the camp become, we talked that that property was supposed to be a super Walmart. And nobody knew what had happened to it. Well, it was on the front page of the paper yesterday, or within the last 4 days, Walmart backed out, and it's now a huge parking lot for Amazon vehicles. So if you want to know what JCC camp turned into, it's an Amazon parking lot. And again, that just happened. And whether I would have noticed that in the paper if we hadn't talked about it, I don't know. But it was like, wait a minute, where did that come from? So just to give you that.
So does anybody remember the JCC at least? Maybe
Yes, I
Erwin will
remember.
remember Yeshiva Flatbush. Maybe Erwin will remember or Cy, but I don't know if anyone else who would know. Dorothy, you wanted to say something?
Oh, yes, I remember the JCC very well. Richard was a head counselor there for years. And some of his students were Teddy Splaver and Jonathan Bowman, who were underlings of Richard. And they were very wonderful. And they had 2 girlfriends there. And they both were saying to Richard, well, we're a couple of years older than these girls. And, we want to date them. They're so cute and all that. And Richard said, why not? You're nice boys. They're nice girls. Give it a try. And sure enough, they both married those same girls that they were going with at JCC. And another thing was that Richard thought he was an actor. And at times they were putting on shows during the summer. And one of them, he played Toto in the movie. He was the little dog, and he was walking around on all fours, and he was having the time of his life. He said it was a wonderful, wonderful, and we used to go there every Sunday and spend the morning and afternoon there. The swimming pool was wonderful. We met so many wonderful congregants there, and we made lots of wonderful friends. Thank you. It was a good year.
Edith, it's Marcy.
Yes.
In 54, I was 10, I was a camper. And then when I was 15, I was a CIT, and then I was a counselor, and then I worked on the waterfront and the baby pool. And it was a great experience. I loved it. And I was there when Ginger Spicer was on the waterfront and Jane Hillman. And I'm trying to think, I remember Andy Bowman was my age, but Johnny Bowman, I think, was there too. And so many kids from Bridgeport and Fairfield. I'm from Bridgeport, so I didn't go to school.
I didn't know anybody really, because I was already living in New York, and I came back to Bridgeport for just a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So I was like a stranger to Bridgeport by that time, even though I was working at that JCC. So I didn't really get to know anybody. And then, of course, at the camp itself, I was just stuck in the office, in the nursery.
Marcy, we were discussing this the other day, Marcy, Billy and I and Rabbi Eisenberg were all discussing when we were kids at Camp JCC. So on Saturday.
I mean, it was our life. I mean, we couldn't wait to get out of school, go to camp.
I think I was a camper when you were there, Marcy, because I would have been there 54, 5, 6 in that time.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know. I mean, I went to there with kids from Hebrew school. So
right.
God, I
Right.
wish I remembered all their names, I can't remember them, but it was great. It was a wonderful place to be.
The staff must have been very understanding and very kind, because as a kid in 40, when I used to sneak off to read a book, I said, well, nobody knows what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if I don't play, nobody knows what I'm doing, except when the sort of little newspaper came out, they had a picture of me sitting under a tree.
Oh.
And nobody ever told me that they knew that I was sneaking away to read.
And we
So they
still
were very
see you.
kind.
You're still sitting under a tree at St. Mary's reading a book. So some things haven't changed,
Haven't changed that much.
except Dorothy is sitting with you.
That's
Yes,
right. Well, that's
I
a
tried to
blessing.
do that.
That's a blessing.
Thank you.
I learned another thing at camp at JCC. In Europe, we didn't eat corn or tomatoes, raw corn or tomatoes. Those went to the pigs because they were pig farms. And I learned to love tomatoes at JCC at lunch. And when they passed the bowl of salad around, I took out every tomato and put it on my plate. So they had to tell me that the next lunch, don't take all the tomatoes.
I have a
Wow.
couple of camp stories from my parents.
Okay.
First of all, my father, who lived in Brooklyn for years and years, went to a place called Camp Lehman. I think it was pretty much just a field. They would put up tents and it was a camp. But his sister met her husband there, and it was quite a place. But my father always wondered where Camp Lehman was. He knew that he would get on the train and he'd go somewhere, and somebody would meet him, and but he had no idea. He thought it was really far away. And then somehow he found out that the camp was in Purchase, like where SUNY is and Manhattanville and those places. So he thought it was a lot further away.
Well, in those days, that was far. That wasn't a
Yes.
quick trip.
Yeah. And my mother, she grew up going summers to a vacation camp kind of place that her uncle started in 1902. He bought property and set up a vacation kind of place, like sort of like Grossinger's. Lots of people would come to it, a lot of Jewish entertainers. And I know Eddie Lawrence was there and several cantors. And there was one person who was the cantor most of the year, but in the summer he was the tennis pro. But for some reason, if a cantor came, what people would request was that he sing, Kal Nidra. But this was in Lakeville, Connecticut. I think its original name was Camp Winoka. My mother lived with her mother and his brother in one house, and then her uncle's family lived in the other house. And so they would go to these entertainments, very young, and hear all these adult jokes. And then there were little kind of skits, but they didn't really understand, what they were all about. So there was one that showed a woman going to a psychiatrist, and she had a toy dog on a leash, and the joke was, no, doctor, it's not me. It's my husband. He thinks he's a dog. So my mother and some of the other kids decided that they were going to put on a show, and they decided to adopt this skit. But they didn't know, what it really was about. So it got kind of changed. The woman walks in and says, "No, it's not me. It's my husband. He thinks I'm a dog."
Oh, boy. That's good. That's really good.
And so the camp is, some of the property, I think 2 holes of the golf course are still owned by some relatives in my family. But
You said Lakeville, Connecticut, David?
yes, yes,
I think that's in the northwest corner. Is that right?
yeah, near Amenia, New York, and
Right, it's on the
Stockbridge and-
border, right,
yeah.
close to Dutchess County. So I think, and it's beautiful up there. I've actually been there. We took a ride. I may be wrong. I'm just looking while we're talking. I think there's a big car speedway.
Lime Rock?
Lime Rock.
Yes.
Thank you,
Lime Rock.
Jackie. That's and Dorothy, thank you. It's very pretty up there. It is really, it still is country, very
Yeah.
much country.
Yeah, you can go there and it's really quiet,
Yes,
but you don't realize
Except
how
for the
silent
cars.
silence is until you go to a place like that. But
right.
more
Right.
people are building houses there now, so it's,
Well, thank you. That was interesting. That's exactly what Edith hoped would happen, is that people would have other camp stories. So before I introduce our latest arrival, does anybody else have something they want to add? Jackie?
I'll just say, I grew up in this area in Bridgeport and Fairfield. And I don't know if people are aware, but Camp Ramah, Edith mentioned Camp Ramah. We had a very active Camp Ramah in Middletown, Connecticut years ago. I went as I worked there. I was already about 14 or 15. And there were a lot of Bridgeport locals, the Bridgeport area people who went to camp. And some of them also, as Edith said, a lot of them coupled up and did get married. One that you may know is Wally Zuckerman and Debbie. That's where they met and they were married, and they're living in Trumbull, actually. So it was a great camp. It closed, and then the Camp Ramah in Palmer, Massachusetts became the one of choice for this area. But Connecticut did have, Rodeph Sholom had a tremendous representation at the camp in Connecticut. There were a lot of campers from Rodeph Sholom.
Did anybody go to or remember Gillawatt, which was?
Oh, yeah, I remember
Remember
Gillawatt.
Gillawatt? So that was run by Hal and- and Steve Gilbert. Now, I just thought of that, Steve Gilbert. I think they were both teachers. And that was a trek to go there.
I had a lot of friends who went to Gillawatt. Cheryl Green went to Gillawatt and her
Oh, did
cousin
she?
Robin. Yeah, and that was
Okay.
the overnight camp where you went Monday and you came home Friday, and then you were home for the weekend. So that was an interesting overnight camp.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I think there was, part of it, I think, was days, but boy, was that in the country. And that was a trek to go there, because to go to Monroe, eventually you could hit Main Street, but you didn't hit anything that was a main street going out to Wilton or Weston. I think it was Weston. So anybody else before I bring us current?
I just want to tell you one more little story.
Feel
When
free,
I
the
was at
floor
Camp
is yours.
Ramah, when I was at Camp Ramah, I was out in the field one day and near a building, and walking down the outside steps of a building, I saw a boy about I would have said that he was 10 years old, maybe 11, not 12 yet. He wasn't old enough for that, but he looked at, and he was a little redhead, very, very cute. And I said, my goodness, that boy looks just like Rabbi Stein. And when I came home, I asked Rabbi Stein if he had a grandson at Camp Ramah, and he said, yes, it was his grandson.
Unmistakable, one might say.
With the image of Rabbi Stein. That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, this was great. And I invited our new synagogue administrator, whose name may be familiar to you because you would have known his mother and you know his father, but he doesn't know you. And this is Scott Bedford. So I'm going to ask Scott to tell you a little bit about himself, and then I'm going to ask you to tell him a little bit about yourselves so he can connect a name with a face. And Scott, if you went to camp, make sure to include that.
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Hey, Scott.
Okay, so I've figured out the microphone. So that's the first start, video and microphone, and you're going the right direction. I did not go to Camp Ramah because my brother and I both went to Ezra through 8th grade. This is my belief. You could ask my dad, certainly. My belief is that my mom wanted to have us home in the summertime. So we did not go to Ramah. We were, at day school all day long. And we both ended up going to tennis camp in Bridgeport down at the Wonderland of Ice in the summertime.
Yay.
And it's very funny because when I got to college and I ended up making a lot of new friends from all around the country, as part of the Hillel there and everything, they had all gone to Camp Ramah other than us. And everyone knew each other from years past, from when they were growing up, and they got together again in college and they all knew each other, but they'd all gone to Camp Ramah and we'd gone to tennis camp. So not quite so much. But I've heard nothing but good things about Camp Ramah. And I believe my wife, Denise, went, is there a Camp Sholom? Does that sound right to anyone? She's from the Weathersfield, Hartford area. And I believe she went to,
Yes, the Hartford JCC has a Camp Shalom.
Yeah, so my wife went to Camp Shalom growing up, and she was a counselor, and she's very fond memories of being part of the Camp Shalom community. And they used to spend their summers in Cape Cod, and I think they maybe did some camp stuff out in the Cape Cod area. So the summer camp thing is a wonderful thing. I love that. What can I say about myself? Would you like a little background? Is that
Yes, that would be great.
Sure. So my life career-wise has been a very interesting full circle. I started off in college as a printer, a person who runs big printing presses, like for newspapers and things like that. And then I realized that wasn't the direction for me. And then I got my MBA afterwards. So my master's in business in technology field, another technology field. And then I realized that wasn't exactly the direction I wanted to be going. And then I went to law school at Syracuse. And while I was getting my law degree, I got another master's degree because you can never have too much education. So I've got 4 degrees, and then I spent a decade as a lawyer in Manhattan doing what they call antitrust, which means I was dealing with consumer cases where the public has been defrauded by companies, and it's trying to provide justice to people when companies do terrible things. And I spent a decade as a lawyer, and after the firm was purchased, all of the very senior but not senior enough people were let go. and they gave me a very nice package to go on my way. And at that point in time, I had just started on my photography career as a hobby, and I decided to take a go at it on a professional level instead. I figured this was a sign from above that it was time to no longer be a lawyer and to do something with a creative side of my brain instead. And so I quit law entirely, and for the last 8 or 9 years now, I've been a professional photographer. I shoot weddings and bar mitzvahs, but mostly rock and roll concerts, which has been very interesting. Instead of being in a courtroom, I stand in front of 20 or 30 or sometimes 100,000 people with a band on one side and an audience on the other side. And it's a very, what I love about concert photography is that it's a very spiritual experience, and there are many parallels between live music. I know this is also thematically ties into tonight's program, but last night. Oh, then I still have to watch it then.
Yes.
But ties into last night's program, because I find with music, much of what I love about religion and what I love about the live music environment are very similar. There are many, many parallels, things that bring people in a spiritual way, uplifting and enlightening in senses of community and togetherness. There are many parallels. So I've been doing that for a number of years. And then I transitioned about 3 years ago from photographing on a nightly basis. I was photographing about 200 nights a year. It was a lot. And people had started to ask me to purchase my artwork to hang on their walls. And I thought, well, that was interesting. And so the last 3 years, instead of taking pictures constantly, now I've been selling the pictures and people, and so now I've gone full circle back to a printer for my college degree, and I've been doing that. And what that has been really nice, but my daytimes have been very free for the last few years here. And when this opportunity to join the shul came up, to get actively back involved within this community, I jumped at the opportunity. You know, growing up in Rodeph Sholom, my family has been in this congregation since my great-grandfather was the chazan here. Many, I guess we're about a century ago at this point. So when this opportunity passed up, and my dad has become very actively involved since my mom passed a number of years ago, which I think has been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I would love to ask my mom what she thinks about that. I think she would smile, and I think she would have a laugh, and I think it would bring a lot of warmth to her heart to know how actively involved he's become. So when this opportunity came up to join the synagogue in the office here, I jumped at it. I have been spending the past week or so now learning from Sue, who is a wealth of information and knowledge about how the operations of the shul work. You know, growing up, I saw the office, but I was usually here on Saturdays and it was always closed. And now seeing how the operations work behind the scenes has been very interesting. And I'm glad that I can lend some of my weird but varied experience to help the congregation. So this is wonderful, I think. I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Well, we are very happy to have you as a part of it. As you were talking, I was seeing and hearing your mother and your father combining to make a Scott Bedford, because we've got creative and we've got exacting and we've got creative and we've got exacting, and they tie together. I think we're very happy that you're here. So I would like everybody on this call just to give you a half a minute as to who they are. So if and when you see them, some you will, some you won't, but at least you'll know who they are and they will know who you are. So Charlie and Gracie, on my screen, your top left. Okay.
Hi, Scott. I don't know if you
Hello.
remember us, Charlie and Gracie Oxenberg. We were friends of your mom and we're friends of your dad, of course. We met you a few times. And so I just know, knowing your mom, I know she would be extremely proud of you, coming back to the synagogue and being associated with everyone here. And welcome. And we know you're going to do a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, Dorothy Blake.
Charlie wanted to say
Charlie,
something.
sorry,
I've,
Charlie.
one day I talked to your mother, and I always heard about that St. Mary's walkway there
Oh, yeah.
in Bridgeport. So a lot of people talked about it. So one day I asked your mother if I could go there with her, and we did, and it was very nice.
Thank you, Charlie. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
Dorothy.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Scott. It's nice to meet you finally. I think I did see you one time. Your dad introduced me, but it was a very quick 1, 2, 3. And Brian is wonderful. He's a guy who always comes and picks us up. When we were going to shul, he would come and get us, anytime there was an evening meeting for the meetings, for the ritual, and for just going to shul after that. He would pick, I would call him and say, Brian, are you going tonight? And he'd say, of course. And then he'd say, you want me to pick you up? I said, yes, you can pick up me and Edith. And thank you, we'll be there at 5:45. I mean, he was so prompt and he was so wonderful. And we just appreciate him for the guy he is, because he's just wonderful. Thank you, Brian.
Edith?
And you too, Scott. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Brian, for joining us. I feel very comfortable with you, and you give me faith in our synagogue for its survival and for being in good condition while you're around. I appreciate your father, and I'm going to appreciate you.
Thank you.
Marion?
Hi, Scott. This is Marion Richer. I've known you for many years. I've been around Rodeph for many years, and I welcome you to our synagogue community and family, and I wish you the best on your job, and I look forward to seeing you in person.
Thank you so much.
Do well.
Jackie?
Hi, Scott. I'm Jackie Lipnick-Ehrlich. And I have just a welcome to the synagogue. We're happy to have you. And I just want to say one thing about your mother and your grandmother, a memory I have. I used to bring my grandmother to services sometimes, and on Saturday mornings. And your mom, may she rest in peace, used to bring your grandmother. And your grandmother, which I didn't know, and Ellen didn't know, your grandmother knew my grandmother. So when they saw each other, it was like two kids, two children meeting up with old friends, and they wanted to sit near each other. It was services. They didn't even talk, but it's like they knew each other was there. So they enjoyed just seeing each other and being with their friend. So welcome and thank you very much for coming and being part of our synagogue.
Thank you.
Neil and Marcy? You're muted, Marcy. Wait, can you unmute?
Computer keeps telling me I'm low on juice.
You're
So,
good.
welcome to Rodeph. We're happy to. Scott, were you working at the church at the food bank, or was that your brother?
No, that was me. Yeah.
Yeah, because Neil and I work with you.
Absolutely. My hair and beard tend to change lengths at different times of year. So the appearance is relative. But yes, I've done many of the food kitchens, before COVID with my dad.
Yeah, we enjoyed working, Neil and I enjoyed working side by side, cutting up those vegetables. You and your dad are very instrumental. And I know your dad still goes to the church and brings them food and everything. So
Yeah.
welcome to Rodeph, and Neil and I will be happy to see you in person when the
Thank
time
you.
comes. Good luck.
David?
Yes, okay, well, Scott and I know each other. Your parents kind of decided to adopt me, and so I ended up at a lot of very nice holiday dinners and other things. And, Brian, being such a handyman, he comes over to help with stuff. And if there's something really heavy and dirty to do, whether it's in my house or the synagogue, he says, "Oh, I'll get Scott. He can help." So we're happy that you're here.
Okay, so Debbie sent a message that she can't talk right now, but she knew that we would find somebody perfect, a perfect match. And this is it. We have the perfect match. So I'm not going to introduce myself because Scott knows me. You all know me. But I am going to wind up with a couple of things. The book, My Mother's Secret, I hope you're looking to get it and to read it. I am sharing it with the Church of the Apostles. I had a meeting scheduled with Pastor Murphy and his wife, Tamara, for this past Monday until I ended up at Muriel Lobovitz's funeral. So we're rescheduling, and I'm going to be talking to him to see how we can do some outreach and share and discuss the book together on our Zoom. I also, with another book, I also had a long conversation with Rabbi Stephen Leon, who's going to be our Esther Kelman Memorial Lecture speaker on April 30th, when we're doing a quasi reunion. He and Rabbi David Nelson will be spending Shabbat with us. Rabbi Leon has worked with crypto Jews in New Mexico and Texas. He's almost in New Mexico. So he's in El Paso, very close to the New Mexico border. Fascinating. He told me a story about tefillin and how he acquired tefillin from a lady who was not Jewish. And I said to him, hold on a second. I have a book that I was given by a friend from New Mexico, and it's called Crypto Jews. And he said, go through the book and you're going to find my hand in there. And my hand will be holding tefillin. And those were the tefillin that this woman gave me. I'm not going to tell you why she gave them to him, because I'm sure he will tell you. But he has done extensive work, and he wrote a book, which I will publicize as well. I ordered it for myself this morning. His article, his bio will be in the bulletin. I just got that yesterday, and there'll be information on the book. I think it's going to be a very enlightening program. So make sure it's on your calendar. You know, we have lots of things happening here, hard to keep up with them all. We've got a blood drive on the 23rd in the afternoon, a very short supply of blood in the area. If you can't give it yourself, just tell people you know. That's all. It's all outreach. And we are looking to expand our empty nester membership. So again, you all are members, but if you know people who are empty nesters in particular and have no place to go and would like to be with a bunch of nice people who do nice things and really are family, because we have become family, ladies and gentlemen. You are my friends. And I like to think that I'm your friends, because I can tell you for sure, two of you who I bump into and look for when I go to my favorite place, which you see on the screen. It's so nice to visit when I bump into Edith and Dorothy. And when I say bump into, we don't knock each other over, but we all stop to chat. And it's just nice. It's family. So think about it. You're all on the membership committee now. You didn't know you were walking away with a job. And I think that we've covered a lot of territory this morning. David Goldstein, I owe you a phone call because I know you're going to be a speaker and I haven't forgotten you. I just don't know where the days go, but they go to Rodeph Sholom, that's for sure. So I will be emailing you to see when we can chat. And if nobody else has anything else to say, I'm going to wind up by thanking you for coming and welcome to Scott. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks very much, Carol.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank you,
morning, very
Carol.
nice morning.
Hello,
Thank you.
Neil and
Edith.
Marcy.
Thank you.
Hello, Neil and Marcy.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's good to see you, Neil. Hello.
Yeah.
Edith,
you.
the program did just what you said it would do.
Well, I
It's
was hoping
smart.
that everybody would tell stories.
And that's what they did.
That's good. It was a fast hour, Carol.
It was. Now I'm going to get ready to go out.
Me too. I'm going
Okay.
walking. Dorothy, you coming?
I'm gonna try to do that. Yes, indeed. What
Okay.
time do you want to go?
There you have it. Okay.
Have a nice day, everybody.
12:30?
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Be
See you all.
careful. I'm going to stop the recording now. Okay.
Okay, thank you.